Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Wednesday, June the 4th. It is lovely to have you guys in for yet another episode of the Primetime program. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out. We are going to talk about Jon Robinson's media tour tonight, which is not something I ever thought I would say in front of cameras or microphones. I never thought Jon would be in front of cameras and microphones that way. But he has been guest hosting Good Morning Football. He's been making podcast appearances. Apparently, he and Jonathan Hutton are going to host a podcast between the two of them. What those guys are going to talk about, I have no idea. But Jon Robinson getting in on the media game, which, again, not something I ever thought I'd say. But the thing about Jon Robinson's media tour is what is being talked about when he makes these appearances, and more importantly, what's not being talked about when he makes these media appearances. We're going to touch on that. We'll get to some OTA stuff as well. I know you guys probably talked about that this morning, but we do not do prime time on Tuesday nights anymore so that I can have a night off. So whatever we learned on Tuesday, we will discuss at length tonight, and then we'll do a little rising and falling at the end of the show. Before we get started, we need you guys to share this program around. Michael on Facebook says, we want answers for A.J. Brown. I don't blame you. Shit, I want answers for A.J. Brown. And I got answers about the A.J. thing when it happened. And I got answers from Jon about the A.J. thing when it happened. But it's crazy. Well, we won't do the whole show before we do all the normal things that we do before we start the show. Anyway, share the show around wherever you're live streaming with us tonight. Please do us the courtesy of sharing the broadcast. If you want to text the link to a friend, you can do that too. Maybe they have thoughts on Jon Robinson being the newest media personality for the NFL Network, it would seem. Not full-time, but on a trial basis as they get into the summer programming. And once you've done that, we'll go ahead and get this thing started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Wednesday night. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer, where they offer you employee pricing for everyone. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. And by TrueMap Fitness in the Gulch. Your first workout is free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout ever recycled or repeated. Just in the best in the business at TrueMap Fitness, helping you achieve your fitness goals. Make sure you let them know that A to Z Sports sent you. So as we look at all the different things that have happened since Jon Robinson was fired in December of 2022, we understand all the different events that took place in the lead up to that, right? Jon Robinson gets hired in 2016 when the owner, Amy Adams Strunk, takes full control of the situation, or takes the controlling ownership role in that situation. She hires Mike Mularkey first. She promotes him from the interim coach to the full-time head coach. And then she hires Jon Robinson, who came to the Tennessee Titans by way of first the New England Patriots, and then he had a brief stint in Tampa Bay. So when Jon gets here, the Titans are in a bad way, right? They are coming off a season where they are the worst team in football. The last time that the Titans earned the right, or were stinky enough, however you want to look at that, to have the number one overall draft pick was Jon Robinson's first year on the job. And we know that Jon Robinson went about the process trading away the number one overall pick to the Rams, who ended up drafting Jared Goff. And Jon set about the process of generating draft capital, rebuilding the roster, clearing out the shitty secondary at the time, right? Some guys like Parrish Cox, packing Denoris Cersei, Titans legends, all rebuilt the secondary, rebuilt the defense in particular, started to build things up through the trenches on the offensive line on the opposite side of the ball, fortifying things, drafted Derrick Henry and Kevin Byard in that 2016 draft. 17, they had Corey Davis and Adoree Jackson. We know Corey was an overdraft. That's been talked about a million times over. But they couldn't get out of the number 5 overall pick that year. They tried to trade back and they couldn't. And they had desperate needs at wide receiver that year. They took Corey Davis in the first round. They took Adoree Jackson also in the first round. And then later in the third round of that draft, they took Taywan Taylor. Neither of those players, I mean, Corey was fine, and you would probably take the version of Corey Davis that you had over what came after Corey, obviously, because that did not go very well for you when you let Corey and Jack Conklin walk. But with all the different things that Jon Robinson went about doing, he got them to a place where in 2019 they had a roster that was ready to compete, and he put together one of the best draft classes that we've seen in the last decade of football. 2019 is Jeffrey Simmons, A.J. Brown, Amani Hooker. Who else did they have in that draft? David Long, who's the third round pick. Nate Davis, who didn't end up working out in Chicago, but was a starting right guard here for several years. The DeMarcus, I'm blanking on the pass rusher out of Georgia that they took in the 5th round, who was the only miss in that draft class, who went to Seattle and did not end up doing anything else at a high level. But it was a great class. It was a class that had immediate contributors who filled in right away, who helped the wide receiver core, who helped the defensive front, and it ended up propelling, being as big a reason as any that the Titans were able to make the AFC Championship that year. He prepared a contingency plan for Marcus Mariota, right? They got Tannehill for pennies on the dollar, and it ended up being one of the best decisions that this franchise has ever made in the Titans era, because Ryan Tannehill was as successful a quarterback as this franchise has ever had, not named Steve McNair. He's the second best quarterback in the history of the Titans era, Warren Moon, obviously, in the franchise. But you would still put Tannehill third, which is crazy to think about. J-Rob did all of these things, and then 2020 happened. And everything fell off a cliff. And they started spending money on Vic Beasley and Jadeveon Clowney. And they started drafting players like, oh my God, that 2020 class, I don't think there's a single one of them that's left. Christian Fulton gone. Isaiah Wilson obviously gone. Down the line of Des Fitzpatrick gone. All these different players across the line. And they still had a good enough core in place. They still had AJ. They still had Tannehill. They had Derek. They had Lawan. They had Jeff. They had Amani Hooker. They had Kevin Byard, right? But they started whiffing on draft picks in 2020. And they started whiffing in free agency in 2020, then 21. And they make the same mistakes with, well, not the same mistakes, but they make mistakes on Caleb Farley and that entire draft class. Dylan Radins. And everything that was a result of that 21 class, which again, the only player left from that class, if I remember correctly, is Roger McCreary. And now he's playing for a different coach and a different general manager than drafted him. And there's no real certainty about McCreary's future, right? Other than Rodgers, probably the most reliable piece in the secondary, not named Amani Hooker, that they have. You go through the rest of it and you see what 22 looked like. And 22 is the nail in the coffin, right? It's trading A.J. Brown for the 18th overall pick in that draft, drafting Treylon Burks, drafting Nicholas Petit-Frere, drafting Malik Willis in the 3rd round, and not having a proper plan in place to support Malik as a potential successor to Tannehill. All these different things, the offensive line situation in deep disrepair, letting Jack Conklin walk, and chasing, it with Isaiah Wilson and, Andre Dillard was ran. Isaiah Wilson, Dennis Daly was a J-Rob acquisition. So many other pieces and parts, so many other missteps that this man made along the way en route to being, I don't know if John is the person most responsible for lighting the Titans' future on fire. And maybe you don't care anymore because you've got Cam Ward, and while Cam Ward hasn't done a damn bit of anything in the NFL other than get you all super hot and bothered about the fact that he wakes up at 5 a.m. and comes to work, which is exactly the kind of shit he's supposed to be doing, which I think is so lame that people are, oh my God, he wakes up so early. He works so hard. Look at this quarterback. Stupid shit, right? Let's see what he does when actually, tested, which we won't see for several more months at this point in time. I think that when you go back and look at all of John was responsible for building them up and making them relevant and making them one of the most difficult teams to play against in the AFC. They were, if you had to list the best teams in the AFC during that era, it's probably Tom Brady's Patriots, Lamar Jackson's Baltimore Ravens, and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But really, Mahomes and the Chiefs hadn't arrived yet. Lamar was just getting his feet under him at the time, and Brady was on his way out and soon to be in Tampa Bay. Cincinnati hadn't hit the scene yet. Buffalo also deserves a seat at that table, though. And Josh Allen, had become at least some version of Josh Allen that you would look around and say, okay, that guy is not the quarterback out of Wyoming. That guy is a Super Saiyan and arguably a more athletic, and I don't even think it's arguable, a more athletic quarterback than anybody else in the league. And I would include Lamar in that mix. Those two are the most athletic quarterbacks in football. At least they were at the peak of their powers. And I still do think that they're at the peak of their powers. Certainly Lamar coming off that last season. But like the Titans had a seat at the table in the AFC. They were one of the toughest teams to play. They were the thing that was standing between Patrick Mahomes and his first Super Bowl win. That was the Titans. It feels like 100 years ago, but that was the Titans, right? John built them to that point. And then, like I said, he's not the only reason it failed, but he has a huge role to play in the demise of this franchise to the point where they went from legitimate power to whatever they are now, which is somewhere between a laughing stock and a Make-A-Wish kid, right? They're trying to get back to that point of relevancy, but God knows it feels like 100 years since they've been relevant. And I have no idea how long it's going to take them to get back out of that hole, right? So John is now doing this media tour, and it's crazy to see. It's absolutely crazy to see. Pistol Grip says, like your Colts, huh? You guys are some of you are so weird about the Colts. You guys know that I've never watched a Colts game that the Tennessee Titans didn't play it, right? Like there's never been anything about the Colts that has had. Now I do root for the Pacers because they're in the NBA Finals, and I do root for Indiana basketball. So I understand why some of you would make that connection. But like, I think I went to a Colts Ravens game when I was in college to watch the Ravens play. So if anything, maybe you would hate me even more if I was a Ravens fan. Should I be a Ravens fan just to bother you all? I think I might no, I'm not a Colts fan. Don't worry about me. I'm not a Colts fan. I'm a Ravens fan. But anyway, if I decide I want to bother you guys extra on any particular day, perhaps that's the pivot that I'll take. But we don't have to spin our wheels there. J-Rob and where he is right now, he's been out of the league for a long time. It's been 3 years since John Robinson was an active general manager. I think that if you're going to put him in front of cameras and microphones, there are certain questions that absolutely must be asked. And in the 3 media appearances that I've seen him on 2 different podcasts at this point and guest hosting Good Morning Football on national television. Nobody, not a single solitary person, has brought up one of the most controversial trades in the last 10 years of football, which is A.J. Brown. Nobody has brought up the fact that the Titans were awful at drafting talent in John Robinson's last 3 years on the job. Nobody's brought up the demise of the franchise that he helped build up and then was almost as directly responsible. The only person more responsible for the Titans shitting the bed than J-Rob is Amy Adams-Strunk solely because it's her team and it's her responsibility to make sure that she's fielding a competitive product. And she's done a shitty job at that too. Brandon Tyler says he's probably told them not to ask about it. I don't know that for sure, but then don't put him on. That's such a problem with, and it's not just sports media, right? There are people who will agree to interviews under conditions. Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson, right? Where Jordan Hudson is saying, we're not talking about the relationship. We're not talking about the fact that we may have met when she wasn't underage at the time, but like she was like in her teens at the time. It sounds like when they first came across each other, like all the different like weird things about the Belichick stuff. Jordan Hudson is going into that CBS interview and giving out orders. You don't do interviews that way. You don't agree to those conditions. And good on CBS for airing that because bleep you. You don't set the terms here. You want to sell a book? You're going to answer questions. You want to try and get back into the football game when probably the biggest reason you've been out is because of this trade. You have to answer these questions. Maybe there's some point when I give up my moral high ground and I start doing interviews that come with conditions. But I like to think that in my life, with 3 hours of talk radio a day, 2 different podcasts, and a streaming show, that if we were doing interviews, and when we do interviews, that we don't do them under conditions. Because that doesn't serve you at all. That doesn't, the whole purpose, I'm not talking to, Brian Callahan for my good health. And I mean, Brian's a fine conversation, but like, I don't do things like the install to for my enjoyment. I mean, I do enjoy doing those live shows. You understand my point. We do those things for you because you guys care about what your coaches, your GMs, your players, all these different things. You guys care about your teams and the things that cause your teams to have success or cause your teams to fail. All that other shit is irrelevant. So when John Robinson is sitting up there on Good Morning Football doing Ravens analysis, I'm just my jaw is almost on the floor at how bad a job the Good Morning Football people did with this.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Zay Flowers, He's got Hopkins, he's got Andrews, he's got Likely, he's got Todd Monken cooking up plays for him. He's been an MVP in the past. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're knocking on the door of going to the Super Bowl. Like, Lamar, step back there and sling it, Daddy.
And then there's just fake laughter all over the place. And maybe it's real laughter because John saying step back there and sling it, Daddy is funny. But is John Robinson like such a dynamic personality that you're just going to put him on television regardless just because he's a fired GM who's looking to stay, in the conversation to potentially get back in the league? I don't blame John. Like, I'm not mad at John about all this. I understand that it may sound like that because he's the subject of conversation. I'm pissed at Good Morning Football. Like, get out of here with that garbage. That serves nobody. The most important thing that John Robinson needs to talk about is the fact that the defending Super Bowl champions who have A.J. Brown, who was a huge part of that Super Bowl run, how did that go down? And how consequential was that trade for your career, John? It's a simple question. You don't even have to make it about the Titans because nobody gives a shit about the Titans on national television. Make it about the Eagles then. Derrick Henry. How did things fall apart around Derrick Henry at the end, John? How many missteps were made around the offensive line situation? Again, this is not like, I'm not mad at John because he was either given an opportunity or had his representation reach out on behalf. I haven't talked to John. It's been several years at this point in time. It's been a while. And like I've said this before. I said this on the radio show today. I have a lot of respect for John Robinson. John Robinson was very good to me during my time here. I enjoyed working with him. I know that he knows ball because he wouldn't have gotten them there in the first place if he didn't. And I've been in situations where I've gotten to watch film with John Robinson. Like, it's nothing personal against John. It's against these I can't say the word that I want to say because it's profane, and I try not to get too profane on here, even though this is an internet show. But like, what are these people doing? Get him off television. If you're not going to ask him those questions, don't put him on. Because John Robinson getting up there and talking about TJ Watt's contract negotiations would be interesting if you ran it through the prism of, well, how did things go south during the AJ Brown negotiation, John? These people operate in highly pressurized environments. They can deal with hard questions. And yes, John cried at a combine one time after the AFC divisional round where they were the number one overall seed and they shit the bed, right? And everything felt like it's spy. I mean, things were starting to unravel prior to that Bengals game, but that really was the nail in the coffin, right? Because then after that game, they go through the combine, they trade A.J. Brown. 2022 starts okay, right? They're 7-4, but then they're 7-3. They go to Philadelphia, they get spanked, and A.J. just runs all over them. Towel whipping, the goalpost in the end zone after his, I can't remember if it was the first touchdown or the second touchdown. Either way, he's going to have his own podcast now too with Hutton, and that's fine. I support both of them doing the podcast and talking ball. And if they're providing, if he is providing proper context to the situation, why are you doing media, John, instead of working in the NFL anymore? Well, it's because I traded A.J. Brown and made a lot of mistakes in the draft process and became a bit of an isolationist in my evaluation process. And things sat, and Vrabel again had Vrabel. The relationship started to wear because Mike's a tough person to deal with, just like Jim Harbaugh, right? There's a lot of great coaches who have difficult personality types, and things started to fracture between John, between John and Vrabel. And so that didn't help things either. But like, what on earth are we doing? What on earth are we doing? Lewis says, remember Zach Bingham always says any publicity is good publicity. Yes, no, indisputably. It's good for John to be on national television talking about football without being asked about A.J. Brown. But it's bad for you. And it's just a shitty job by Good Morning Football. Terrible job by Good Morning Football for being willing to prop him up without asking him the questions that are actually relevant to the current state of the NFL. Derrick Henry in Baltimore competing for Super Bowls. A.J. Brown in Philadelphia competing for and winning Super Bowls. There's Titans all over the place from the John Robinson era. Bud Dupree just signed a contract extension today in Los Angeles. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I'm not mad at John. I'm mad at sports media for just doing propaganda. Just because a fired general manager from 3 years ago was like, yeah, we don't know this. We don't know that John specifically went in there and said he didn't want to talk about the Titans. But like, and I know this clip that I played is John Robinson being asked about I think it's about Lamar leading the league in passing or something like that. And so Derrick Henry wouldn't come up in a conversation about Lamar Jackson passing weapons, right? But like John Robinson basically lists every player on the Baltimore Ravens offense except Derrick Henry in this clip.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Zay Flowers, He's got Hopkins, he's got Andrews, he's got Likely, he's got Todd Monken cooking up plays for him. He's been an MVP in the past. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're knocking on the door of going to the Super Bowl. Like, Lamar, step back there and sling it, Daddy.
And then the fake laughter. God. Jose Raul, I think it's Jose Raul, says, you sound like you've never watched Good Morning Football. That show is only softballs. Yeah, I don't. And it's not, it's not like, oh, I wouldn't be caught dead watching it. I don't know what's on Good Morning Football because I don't know. When Nate Burleson and Kay Adams and Peter Schrager and Kyle Brandt were doing that show at its peak, it was compelling television. And I thought they did a good job. I thought they brought different dynamics. I thought they had a well-rounded cast. And maybe some of these things are, maybe they were still doing softball type of stuff when it was, but like I never watched the show. It's like late night television. I'm not actually watching these things. I'll just catch them on social media after the fact. But I can't for the life of me wrap my head around, like, why even do sports television if you're not going to get people the actual information that they're interested? Is it just like, low? I mean, I don't know. It's not like I watch the Today Show either, but they might as well be doing puff pieces on who Derrick Henry's favorite actor is, right? We'll get to that here in just a second. Charles Barnes says on YouTube, speaking of sports media, how does it feel to be a lone representative of non-Broadway sports media to make it? What does that mean? A lone representative of non-Broadway sports media to make it. I don't know what that's in reference to. But I mean, I don't know. Nobody's fired me yet. if that's what you're asking, we're doing okay at this point in time. Okay. So with Lewis Chesney says Nate went to Hollywood. No, he went to New York. He's on what, CBS Mornings? I have the same agent as Nate Burleson, as a matter of fact. So we are very happy to see Nate get a glow up in one of those $20 million a year jobs, because that means there's hope for the rest of us, baby. So OTAs, I know we haven't talked about it. Vernon Sanford says he has a game show. I know he's doing Hollywood Squares. He's making that good network TV money, baby. We're very happy to see Nate succeeding. Not just because he's talented and he works hard, but also because my agent negotiated that contract, and I'm very happy to see things like that because it makes me feel like I picked the right people to work with. Anyway, OTA stuff we'll probably do tomorrow since we have one more primetime show to do, and we spent a lot of time here talking about John. Because there is some interesting stuff at OTAs, and I know we didn't do primetime last night. Obviously, I did 3 hours of radio that was very much about OTAs today. And we even then didn't get to everything that happened in OTAs. We're going to have a lot of T'Vondre Sweat conversation tomorrow specifically too. But I do want you guys to check out this a portion of this interview with Cody Barton, which was on the radio show in full today, but is going to have relevance to the linebacker competition. And I'm going to play you a snippet of that here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the wonderful people at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Online at tworiversford.com, quality American-made Ford vehicles and award-winning customer service. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com, where they currently offer employee pricing for everyone, which means you pay what they pay on almost every new Ford on the lot. tworiversford.com for more details. All right. So just a little taste of OTA stuff, and we'll do the bulk of it tomorrow on primetime, and some different kind of stuff on the radio show tomorrow. I don't think we have any guests for the radio show tomorrow. We did have Walker Zimmerman on the radio show today too, as well as this Cody Barton interview. But I just, want to make sure you guys get some OTA discussion. And this was Cody Barton sitting down with me yesterday at practice. In St. Thomas Sports Park with the off-ball linebacker competition around you, right? Obviously, they brought you in here for a reason, but there's a lot of different moving pieces and parts. And, you guys aren't in pads yet, so you try not to get too ahead of yourself. But with the young guys that you're working alongside and dudes who have maybe a year or two of experience and stuff like that, what can you tell the audience about the different kinds of dudes who you're working with right now in the room?
Yeah, right now going out has been me and James Williams.
Yeah.
Tall, big athlete, converted safety.
Looks like a predator out there, man.
Yeah, dude's big. Big, smooth athlete, is rangy, but plays in the box very well. Another Mike playing with me is Cedric Gray, very tough, physical guy. He's gonna hit somebody, you know what I mean? Very aggressive guy. Other guys, we just got a guy from the Saints, Anthony Anfroni, I think is how you say it, Orgy.
Anfroni, yep.
Yeah, no disrespect, bro. I just call him Orgy. But, another Mike, actually kind of can play both. I know they got Mike a little bit, but just a big, strong athlete, explosive guy. Amari on the other side, coming from the Raiders, good athlete, smooth guy, ex-safety as well, and former ex-safety in my young college days.
Yeah. At Utah.
Yeah, Utah.
Did that much homework.
Yeah, there you go.
Shit.
That's not a hard one. Who else am I thinking? I'm missing. Oh, Curtis James.
Yep.
Coming from the Patriots. Good, big athlete, strong dude. David Benda, the rookie. Good player. And then Otis. Huh? Oh, my bad. Yeah, and then Otis.
He's just got to get some love where he can. He's not getting enough attention over there.
But the room's full of good young athletes. They're young guys. They're still learning. And, it's actually helped my game, too, because while I'm learning the defense, they're helping me learn the defense, and I'm also helping them on the defense from my perspective, because I've been in some different schemes. And so, it's just a lot of back and forth in the room, helping each other. And, as young as they are, they're picking up things quick, and they're, as a whole group, we're all moving the right way.
So that is a portion of our conversation with Cody Barton.
Shit.
I know. Lucas was yelling at me today because I said shit. He's like, "You're doing a radio interview." I was like, "I don't really feel like I'm doing a radio interview when I do those," but he's right. I forgot that was supposed to air on FCC air, and I made life harder on Robert and Justin and Lucas and everybody else. But that's fine because I didn't have to do anything extra. Shit.
Shit.
Oh my God. But I really enjoyed talking to Cody. He is somebody who is obviously solidified one of the off-ball linebacker spots. That competition really doesn't have legs until they put on pads. It's offensive line, it's defensive line, it's off-ball linebackers. These guys, maybe they're getting a lot of reps right now. And it's like, what is the name of the mayor from The Wire? Did we ever figure that out? I can't remember. They've got a compilation of all his different shit moments on the internet. Great show, by the way, The Wire. I can't remember the name of the mayor, but I'm sure one of you will put it in the chat for me.
Mayor Clarence.
Mayor Clarence. All right. That was such a great character in that TV show. Barton and the linebacker competition. A lot of people are caught up about James Williams. I don't know who else or where else you might have seen your reporting on it. And if you've listened to me talk about this or write about this or tweet about this, you know that James Williams is getting a lot of work at this point in time. But I don't necessarily think that makes him a favorite in the competition, because they can't really separate themselves until they put on pads. This is, for me, with James Williams specifically, them just trying to get him additional reps at linebacker, because as a converted safety, and he did have some good snaps last year when he played linebacker. I felt better about him than I did Cedric Gray. Otis Reese, we'll see what happens there, but it'll be telling once we get to. Jeffrey Mullen says Williams or Gray. I mean, I don't know. Anthony Ortiz played a lot of football. Like, there's nothing to guarantee that Cedric Gray, who wasn't drafted by this front office and didn't play worth a damn last year and spent the vast majority of the season injured. This is for Clay Davis, not Clarence. Clay Davis. Who the hell is Clarence? Who did you make?
Shit, boy.
We better not get popped for that. That's an HBO product.
Shit, it was just a second.
This is the kind of stuff he said.
Shit, boy. Think I'm
Too much. Careful. Anyway, the competition, the off-ball linebacker stuff, the reps right now, they keep telling us they don't matter. So at a certain point, I'm going to listen to them. But they're just trying to get guys experience. And right now, is OTAs are basically the time of year where you're just throwing shit at a wall. Like, you may try some crazy stuff schematically. You may try some stuff that you would never, put into an actual playbook unless it works. Maybe see how the guys are vibing with it. But OTAs are very much an experimental portion of this. And there's not a more experimental player on the roster, I think, right now than James Williams. Because he looks physically impressive, right? But so did Kenneth Murray. And Kenneth Murray was not a good player at that position. All right. Little bit of Jack Longley says, Buck, you can't be a Ravens fan. Then you have to be friends with Robert. That is a tough cost benefit. What is more appealing to me? Bothering you all unnecessarily, especially when you're being annoying. And I love you, but sometimes you're annoying. Or being friends with Robert. It's a really tough call for me. I'll have to think about that for a while. Mark Patton says Mr. Ward is watching right now. Watching what? You better be watching something other than primetime. I mean, I know players do watch this stuff and shit. Amy has watched this. I know Vrabel used to not make comments, but like, we used to be able to see who was watching the show and stuff like that. And the radio show, I've got 2 million people within the sound of my voice, which is crazy to think about. But like, I know these things catch on. I don't, the thing that Ward needs to be watching is film of himself, continuing to recognize the different things that Denard Wilson is throwing at him. They had a huge third down day yesterday. They had him in a blender for periods of time. Defense wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they are certainly trying to make sure that they can put him in a position to succeed. And it sounds like everything is going to plan with Cam. But like I said, I don't
shit, boy. Shit.
Clarence is gonna.
Yeah. Oh, what's Clarence gonna do? What is Clarence gonna do?
Shit, boy. Shit.
Clarence is gonna.
You done?
Drop my fork. Got a damn hair on it, boy. Shit.
Get off my screen. Oh my God. I think that with all the different OTA things that we're talking about, and we'll do competition discussion tomorrow at more length, but linebacker is a really important one for them to get right, because we know what kind of just coverage nightmares they had last year, because they had a lot of unexperienced players. Then Kenneth Murray was not. Kenneth Murray was just not a good player at this point in time. Okay, so rising and falling. Whose stock rose? Whose stock fell this week in sports? We'll talk about it together on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. If you want to get involved there, Pistol Grip says can't wait until open practice. Are they doing the lottery for you guys this year? What's the vibes with the? Maybe y'all don't know that yet. I don't have the answer. I don't pay attention to that stuff unless you guys ask me about it, and I have to go look it up. But are they doing like just general admission? Because I know they stopped doing that a long time ago with the new part of the facility. Last year, I think they had like a lottery for you guys to like enter to be able to like gen pop your way in if you're not like a super season ticket holder or whatever the hell. I know they do different days. I think they ended up having like 19 or not 19, but like 9 or 10 open practices, but they're like specific groups that they brought into under the auspices of open practice. So I hope that you guys, or as many of as you guys as want to be out there for open practice, are able to attend. You hear Moon yelling in the background. Is the microphone picking that up, Robert?
Shit, boy.
That's basically what she's saying at this point in time. All right. Who Stock rose, who stock fell this week in sports? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that the Primetime program is presented by TrueMap Fitness in the Gulch, where your first workout is free. Free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout ever recycled or repeated. Just the best trainers, the best facility, conveniently located in downtown Nashville. All very affordable for you. TrueMapFitness.com. Your first workout is free when you mention A to Z Sports. So rising and falling, who stock rose, who stock fell. I think that when you talk about stock falling, I think one person that comes to mind in particular, one organization that comes to mind in particular, Tom Thibodeau got fired by the New York Knicks yesterday.
Stunner in the NBA. Breaking news into SportsCenter. Shams Charania, our NBA insider, joining us now. Shams, you just put this out moments ago. What do you have?
Tom Thibodeau has been relieved of his duties as head coach of the New York Knicks. Sources tell me after 5 seasons as head coach of the Knicks, Tom Thibodeau is out. He led them to 4 playoff appearances in 5 years as head coach. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. They won back-to-back 50-plus win seasons for the first time since the 1990s. But I'm told the Knicks believe that they need a new voice, someone that can take them to the next step of the organization's future, which they hope is an NBA championship. This is a team that obviously has talent: Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. They feel like they need a new voice, and that's what the decision was made today by Knicks ownership. James Dolan, Leon Rose informed Tom Thibodeau today that he has been let go as head coach.
So that's Shams Charania doing the reporting on ESPN the other day. And listen, I'm honestly surprised because, and we talked about this on the radio show today for those of you who listened to that, like what is the NFL comparison to that? And Mike Mularkey actually makes a lot of sense there. Mike won the first playoff game for the Tennessee Titans organization in like 14 years. A lot of rumors about him getting fired even before they had the win in against the Jags in the regular season. Then a lot of rumors about him getting fired after they beat the Chiefs. Then he had a bit of I wouldn't say a freak out, but he just was very bothered that he was having to answer questions about his job security after beating the Kansas City Chiefs. They lost to the New England Patriots the following week, and she fired him, right? That's probably the best comparison that you might be able to come up with. And firing Mike Mularkey at that stage did end up elevating the Titans. So we'll see what happens with the Knicks. But they've had more success in 5 years under Tom Thibodeau than they have basically at any point in the last 25 years. Because that's the last time they were in an Eastern Conference Finals. So I guess. But you have to get people who know what they're doing if you're going to make decisions like that, because the grass is not always greener. I don't know if the Knicks are a trustworthy organization to get it right. Like I almost tried to run it through a Vrabel parallel earlier today, because obviously the Titans shit the bed. I mean, and they were falling fast after, even while Mike was still the coach, with the roster deficiencies and all the different issues that they were up against at the time. But Mularkey is probably the better comparison there. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Fun show. We appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll do OTA competition. We'll do roster competitions with you guys tomorrow on Primetime. Tomorrow on the radio show, we're going to be talking about what it is to set the bar for a successful rookie quarterback season. I had a couple of interesting comments that were sent my way, or questions that were sent my way that, made me confused as to why people were setting the bar so low for Cam Ward. But then I looked up some different information that I thought was interesting to bring to the table about all the different rookie quarterbacks, basically in the last 25 years of football, and how they've fared relative to what people might consider successful. So we're going to do that on the radio show. We're going to talk T-Sweat on the radio show tomorrow too. So we'll do those two things on the radio show. We'll do position battles on primetime tomorrow. Looking forward to having you guys a part of it. Also, new episode of The Install with Greg Cosell tomorrow. Speaking of the AFC North, and who's going to do better Ravens analysis tomorrow, Robert? John Robinson or Greg Cosell?
Boy. Shit.
Clarence is going to.
No, Clarence is not going to do anything. Clarence is going to get the hell out of here because the show's over for the night. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
There's a very low percentage of this that is smiles and glory holes.